Okay, let's call this gathering to order. Let's talk about the minutes for the last meeting. I think everybody's got a copy of them. I think we can forego reading the minutes unless someone objects, but have we got any comments or additions, corrections? Nothing?
No comments for me. I read through and make a motion that we accept them as written.
Larry, second that?
I do.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Ryan, you good for that?
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna post, or we are posting, I guess, minutes on the website. Marianne?
You're on mute, Marianne.
I understand that if we wanted to get your guys' take on that, if you want us to just go ahead and post the agendas and the minutes, Casey told us that that was kind of your decision. So yeah, that's why that item is on there. We want to make sure you guys are okay with.
Yeah, I've got no problem with it. Larry?
Yeah, I support that.
Brian?
Agreed. Agreed.
Okay, let's do it. Okay, written comments. I didn't get them until this morning, so I don't have anything to comment on. Brian, Larry? Have you had a chance to go through them?
I had a chance to look through them, and it seems to me there's some valid issues.
And I had just started looking through them this morning, got through 2 of them, I think.
Yeah, no, I haven't. I just skimmed over a few of them. I didn't read any of them in detail, but sounds like there's some unhappy folks out there.
Was there anybody that thought the current process was fair that you noticed, Larry, or were they mostly addressing the fair and equitable question that was brought up in the first 2?
I think the concern was the fair and equitable question.
Okay.
One thing I did pick up in skimming over them is that a couple people commented they thought the entire district ought to be included.
You know, until I look at the property and get out and see what's there, I don't have any way to make any judgments about that.
Yeah, I don't either. Mapping is great, but there's nothing like looking at the physical piece of property or properties.
That's true.
Okay, let's talk about history. Who's going to take off on that?
Okay. I will go ahead with that. And hang on one second. Let me get. Let's see here. All right. Oh, let's see here. Hold on one second. Okay. Oh. Somehow it got me. Let me go back to the beginning here. Somehow it ended up at the end. Apologize for making you dizzy for a little bit. Okay. So just kind of wanted to kind of do a little bit of an overview on not just history, but kind of what we're doing. So as we go through this, feel free to ask me any questions as we go along. Yeah, so this is just meant to kind of give a little bit of background to what the district does, and yeah. So, are you guys seeing it full screen,
No,
or does it have a little the little thing up on the side, or?
It has your notes up, Marianne.
Okay, so I need to figure out how to, and there aren't any notes, but I would like you to be able to see it full screen. So I don't know how to do that though. How's that? That change anything?
not for me. There we go.
Yep, we got it. Oops.
All right. Okay, so just some of the basics. Newman Lake's a 1,200 acre natural lake. It's the kind of the largest natural lake in Spokane County. It's located in kind of northeastern, actually mostly eastern Spokane County, almost on the Idaho border. The flood district boundaries include the lake and its watershed, and it also includes the outlet and its watershed. A couple of kind of interesting points is that Newman Lake has no natural surface water outlet. It's totally man-made channel all the way to the sink, and it was constructed even before the district got involved. It was constructed by the farmers out there to kind of help them drain some of the fields below the lake, control the lake level. So the outlet goes into it doesn't even connect surface water to the Spokane River or anything. It infiltrates into the Spokane Valley gravels in what we call the sump or the sink. And got a little bit of a map. I hope you can kind of see that, give you an idea. So here obviously is the lake. This darker shaded area is the portion, the watershed that drains to the lake. And then it's kind of a rough schematic of the channel as it goes down, and it infiltrates in kind of a long oblong area that we call the sink. It's almost down on Trent Road, which anyway, it's about 3 miles down to this sink area. It's kind of an overall, the mission of the district, basically to maintain and operate the flood control facilities and manage the lake level to serve the needs of the homeowners, the farmers, recreationists, and others along the area. It also, part of its mission is to provide a leadership and a focus for community efforts to improve the water quality of the lake, and work with the landowners and to minimize the impact of watershed activities. We also monitor the lake water quality and operate and maintain the aerator and alum injection systems. That's probably the biggest funding wise. That's probably the biggest cost of our operations. And then we also do milfoil control, controlling invasive species. And milfoil is the main issue on that.
Marianne, I have a question.
Yeah.
On your first bullet point there, is to maintain and operate the facilities and serve the needs of multiple people. And it says, and others. Do you have an example of who the others would be?
That's a that's a good question. I was actually thinking about that when I was reading, and I couldn't really couldn't really come up with it. That was of who that is off the top of my head, because I think, you know, the homeowners around the lake, the people recreating in the lake, which includes, of course, the homeowners, the farmers above and below the lake. I'm not thinking of what the others is right now.
So I guess the intent with that statement and the facilities is to serve the needs of many people, not just one set or another, but there's multiple facets to who you serve.
Correct.
Okay.
In the comments, there were some concerns about people from outside of the community that use the lake for recreation. Is that what the others applies to?
The most of those people, they access, well, there's three kind of access points if, you know, if you're not a homeowner. The main one, probably by far the most used, is the Fish and Wildlife public boat launch. And that's probably mostly what they're referring to. There are two small resorts that have, you know, camping and available, not much. One down near the outlet at the south end of the lake, and one over in on the west side of the lake, Sutton Bay. So that's where their use, and that would be probably, you know, fishing, recreation, water skiing, that kind of, though I would think kind of recreationist kind of covers that one. Okay. So kind of a quick dip into history. The district was formed in 1968 after a petition signed by over 25% of the area property owners was submitted to the county. Basically, the community, mostly I would say probably the lakefront residents, but also the farmers, wanted assistance with managing the lake level and the flooding problems. The old facilities were getting into disrepair, and they needed an organization to apply for funding to get the facilities rehabilitated, and also to support long-term maintenance. So at that time, the flood control zone district determined was kind of the easiest to form and best fit, you know, the purpose of what they wanted to do. And so it was formed under 8615, which I think we talked about at our first meeting in 1968. So those improvements that were installed was the floodwater barrier was improved, and that runs along the we'll have better pictures here in a minute, but runs along the south end of the lake. They built a new outlet gate. They put it up on rock in a little different location where it wouldn't keep sinking. There was a new channel water control gate installed, which is right kind of where that little triangle is. And they improved the whole capacity of the outlet channel and the sink. And that was with a grant from the old Soil Conservation Service, what's now the Natural Resource Conservation Service, NRCS. Just give you a little bit more visual on the dike. Kind of runs along the south about 1.5 miles along the south end of the lake. It's totally made out of peat, which makes it kind of problematic to maintain. It subsides and in fact, right now it's not even, there are areas of the dike that have subsided below the 100-year flood elevation. The new outlet gate was constructed kind of further north. The old one used to be right here. The new one was constructed where they could find some rock to install it on. And it's right here. This kind of a new section of the channel. The water control gate was installed along the outlet channel, roughly about here. And you can see that from the aerial photo. I'll get some more pictures for you here. These facilities are all still pretty much intact today and operated pretty much as they were built and designed by NRCS. Here's the outlet structure. It's kind of the downstream side. There's two slide gates, one on each side of the structure. This is looking underneath. This is a scan down the outlet channel in the summertime. This is kind of one of the lower parts there. Here's a photo of our the channel water control gate. It's a big roll gate on that one. And then here's a photo down in our sump with in the spring when there's actually some water in it and it's infiltrating into the gravel. So, oops, sorry. And just a quick look at the benefit maps that were set up to fund this work. Although the old SES did most of the funding. I think it was around $1 million at the time for doing the work. They needed to purchase some right of way, so they need funding for that, and they also needed to support the ongoing operation and maintenance. So they chose at that time felt the best option, best able to implement, which was a benefit assessment under 8609. And here's a little summary of how they class that. You'll notice that the agricultural land to the south had 100% relative benefit, whereas the non-agricultural land around the lake, basically lakefront property owners, were estimated to have only a 50% benefit, and then secondary properties a 10% benefit.
Unknown caller.
And this is kind of in a map view, roughly where this was the easiest graphic I could come up with. It's not maybe 100% accurate because it was a preliminary version, but anyway, this gives you an idea. So these tan areas are these farmlands. Here north of the lake and south of the lake are the farmlands. All right, in here also is the farmlands. And then the blue are the waterfront property owners at 50%. And the red are the secondary ones at 10%. Then not too long after that, water quality concerns began to be raised. By the early 80s, they were having serious algae blooms, which were impacting the recreational use of the lake and the aesthetics of the lake. They got some funding from Ecology in 1985 to take a little closer look as to what was happening. And they identified basically excess nutrients, most specifically phosphorus, as the main culprit. The sources that they're identified were not only, watershed runoff, the shoreline runoff or from the inlets, but also the in-lake sediments. Newman Lake has a really heavily organic bottom sediments, and it was kind of a compounding problem. The problem exacerbated not just because of the nutrients in the lake, but the nutrients in the lake were causing all this algae growth, and that was even making worse low oxygen problems in the bottom layers of the lake. And so that was even further increasing. When you have the low oxygen, you get even more phosphorus coming out of the sediments and mixing into the lake and creating even worse algae problems. So those issues were identified then, and they looked into ways in the phase 2. They looked into ways to resolve that, and they did a whole lake alum treatment with part of that funding in 1989. And then the biggest one that, of course, we still work with today is the installation of the Hypolignic oxygen system. And that was done in 1992. And the main purpose of that is to, when the lake stratifies during the summer, and so what happens is as the water temperatures warm up, the top layer is the warmest and it stays on, and the cold layer gets trapped on the bottom and it doesn't mix because of the densities of water. So it's what they call stratifies, and that lower layer isn't able to get oxygenated from surface winds, and so it gets depleted of oxygen. And so that hypolignic oxygenation system was designed to feed oxygen into that bottom layer during the summertime to maintain oxygen. Also, as part of that, they did some looked at watershed sources, come up with a watershed management plan, did some public education and a septic survey. This is just to give you an idea. These actually are pictures from this year, but this is give you an idea what algae problems did exist, and still, when we get some extreme years like this year with weather, that we still do get in terms of algae blooms, and give you an idea how that can impact recreation. Here's a diagram that I thought kind of might be useful as to what this oxygenation system looks like. Basically, on the upland side, we have a compressor building that houses compressors and what we call an air sep, and it basically pulls the nitrogen out of the air after it's compressed, so that we just inject oxygen into the lake, and those go down the hill in 2-inch pipe. And then it extends about a quarter mile out into the lake, where it gets injected into the top of this cone. It's called a Spiess cone because of the designer of it. And there's a pump that intakes the lake water, pumps it up and then down in through this cone. And when the oxygen is injected into the top of the cone, it becomes dissolved into there, at least ideally. And then it's injected out through, this is 120-foot long, 2-foot diameter PVC pipe with small 2-inch holes along one side, about every 2 feet or something like that. I forgot exactly, but anyway, so it distributes, that's how the oxygenation is distributed into the lake for this current system.
Does the
Um,
cone stick up out of the water?
Nope, good question. Yeah, so it's about probably about 8 feet or so below the surface. It's the top of this pipe. The cone itself, it sits in about 30 feet of water, and the cone itself is about 18 to 20 feet. It might be about 20 feet by the time it gets to the top of this U-shaped pipe. When the water level's low and the water clarity is pretty good, you can actually see it, see the top of that, but most of the time you really can't see it's there, except that we have buoys that surround it. And then you can also see the release of any undissolved air through these riser pipes. Kind of see them at the surface.
Looks like there's a sea monster swimming under there, huh?
Well, they put a couple of fish in the drawing, but yeah. Oh, right. Yeah. I
The
get you.
bubbles.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah. Of course, this was designed, this was kind of the first of its kind when it was designed. And when we had concerns here recently about, well, one wanting to upgrade the equipment and making sure that the system was operating properly, we have gotten some feedback, but we can talk a little more about this later with our capital grant money, that there's probably some improvements that we can make to the system. So, but we'll talk more about that in a little bit. Here's some pictures. This is what the cone looked like before they were putting it into the water. So you can kind of see that. Here's a picture of the compressors up in our compressor. And this is the compressor building. So, yeah, with the alum tank alongside, which we'll talk about in a second here. So the water quality benefit maps were approved in 1988, basically kind of the same process. They were needed for funding of the lake restoration matching funds, and also for the ongoing maintenance and operation of the district. And again, there were 5 classes, different benefit ratios. And in this case though, because they were tied to the water quality benefit, the 100% benefit ratio was the lakefront property owners. Then secondary lots, and then tertiary lots, and then all other lands, including farmlands, down there at 10%. And this is kind of a map view of these as well. The farmlands now are down at 10%. The primary ones are the waterfront homes, and then the secondary lots in red, and the tertiary lots this time also get added in, and they're in yellow here.
Mary Ann, I have a question.
Yes.
So there's two sets of maps and benefit ratios. What's the reason for having 2 and not just having 1?
Well, I guess as best as I can say, it was just probably had to do with the timing, and also that there are different beneficiaries between what is, between the 2 different activities. Could they be combined? I think that's maybe something you guys can talk about, but this is I guess the way it was done at the time.
Okay.
Question, Marianne.
Yes.
We got these gargantuan maps you sent us. Are these like this map and the benefit map look like they're on a smaller scale. Have you got those available?
Yeah, it's a little harder on the smaller scale. What I think might be easiest, the reason that they are so large was just to be able to, for you to be able to see it and maybe look at it. I think we were this was kind of a few years ago when we were pulling this together. I think we were envisioning that you'd all be able to get into a room together and and view them. Of course, that's pretty difficult right now. So we
Yeah,
can give that a try. The other thing is that we do have access, you know, you'll be able to access online for a map and be able to look at them that way. But we can try to pull something together that's a little smaller as well.
I can make a
Are
digital version of those.
these slides from a booklet of some kind?
Well, I kind of had to dig for these, and they're preliminary for a reason. That you know, at the time we had done that, we hadn't had the specific, but I did think that just as for a kind of a quick look and a quick idea that this would probably work. But we can probably try to update these and making sure they're current and get them to you.
Okay.
Again, you'll and maybe we can work with each of you to get access. You should be able to, now that you have your laptops, get access into our county maps program. And
Yeah,
all these have layers in there, and then you'll be able to look at these areas and be able to zoom in and look at them without having to use those big paper maps.
Yeah, what the reason for my question is, I'd like to have something like this in a scale or a smaller scale than the big ones that we could take out in the field with us.
Okay.
See
what we can do.
Can't get online when we're out in the field, and we can't take those huge maps out there.
Yeah.
You know, we can, you know, use those in the office to fine tune things, but go out in the field and get a general feel of where we are and what the prior benefits were, or something that, you know, you could carry with you in a vehicle and make some sense out of it.
Okay. We'll work on that. Get you something here. And just a kind of a quick note, in 1997, when the when the effects of the whole lake alum treatment started decreasing, they kind of tacked on to the aerator what's called alum injection system, and put a tank next to the compressor building. We have a kind of a small pump system, and some lines will run down kind of parallel to the oxygen lines, and alum was pumped through little 1/2 to 3/4 inch tubing out again another 1/4 mile, and they made 3 injection points along the distribution point to be able to distribute alum into the lake. And alum binds up with phosphorus and causes it to be precipitated out and bound down into the sediments. So it's used quite a bit in water treatment applications, and then also in pretty commonly used in lake rehabilitation to do that, to minimize the contribution or bind up the phosphorus so it's not feeding the excess phosphorus, so it's not feeding the algae blooms.
Why does there not seem to be any effort to stop the flow coming in from upstream that should be the source of the problem?
Well, there has, and I guess I haven't talked to that, so it's a little more difficult. But there has been some efforts. I know a lot of the farmers on the upstream side have, you know, and at the time also, you know, removed their cattle from grazing near the stream, which the stream or the lake, which
Mhm.
you know, minimizes nutrients. There was a program with the forest roads, because, you know, if you get erosion on forest roads, that contributes to nutrients. There's a program by the state DNR, not just statewide, but also specifically with the Thompson Creek watershed, which Thompson Creek is the main inlet on the north side of the lake, to improve the roads and the crossings up there. And so the forest lands have, you know, the forest owners have done some work in that regard to minimize sediments coming in. Also, we've got a new, there was a grant for restoring Thompson Creek with beaver dam analogs, which I don't know if you've heard of those. They're called BDAs for short, but they're used to try to slow down streams. Basically, they kind of little man-made
Sediment ponds, it sounds like.
yeah, exactly. Yes, and try to kind of restore the stream, and then that would also that's going to be going in this fall. That wasn't directly our project, but we kind of helped facilitate it. It was actually the Lands Council and GU had kind of a joint project that they got some ecology funding for, to try to minimize it. So there are some things being done in that regard. It's controlling sources, because most of these are what's called non-point sources of the nutrients. It's not always easy, but also what's in the lake is important too, because a lot of the contributions come from the sediments themselves and not just the inlets. Oh yeah, and then on the septic front, there's no sewer around the lake, and of course there's some high water tables and there's some old septic systems. So there was the local conservation district is working with ecology and some of the homeowners in the Honeymoon Bay area, which is kind of on the southwest side of the lake, to test. I think they're kind of still at the test stage. New high-tech kind of septic systems that treatment systems that'll minimize what's the nutrients they're getting into the lake as well. So there are some other things going on.
Okay.
But it's a good question. So what are we? That's kind of the history. So what are we doing now, I guess, is kind of what I wanted to move into. So what really hasn't changed is we're kind of continuing to maintain and operate the flood control zone facilities, the flood control facilities, to manage the lake level and reduce the flooding. Most of those operations haven't changed much, except as I kind of mentioned before, you know, we do have problems with the dike, and we're looking at ways to decommission that. We're still maintaining and operating the oxygen and alum injection systems, and monitoring the water quality as part of that effort. We continue to work with the advisory board and the community, looking at opportunities to improve Newman Lake watershed management and water quality. And some of those we just talked about, Larry, with your question.
Mhm.
probably one of the newer things in 2003, we found Eurasian water milfoil. And so we do periodic surveys and treatments needed. Probably on average spend about 20,000 a year controlling milfoil. We're a resource for landowners with questions, concerns, lake levels, water quality. When algae blooms come up, we kind of help try to coordinate the getting the samples to the state and monitoring for any toxins and getting the word out to people if it is. That's in conjunction with the health district. So we're not lead on that, but we're trying to facilitate it. And of course, just administering the district. We meet with the advisory, the community regularly to discuss district issues and management and priorities. Specifically on the flood control zone side, right now, we're working with the state dam safety office to decommission that floodwater barrier. It's currently considered a high hazard dam. And to do that, we're hopefully going to be able to get some grant applications through the state or the NARCS to do that work. It's probably going to involve removing a section of the barrier down to roughly our kind of peak summer lake level elevation. Also some work that we're hoping to do here in the next couple of years, perform some preventative maintenance on the control gates, ongoing items, maintaining the lake level curve as much as possible. And to do that, we monitor the snowpack, the precip, and the outlet and inlet gauge levels to keep to that curve as much as possible. We provide sub-irrigation and water in that upper part of the outlet channel for folks with water rights along the lake, although that's really been minimized quite a bit here recently. In fact, this year, I don't think we had any requests for any additional water coming out of the channel. And there really isn't that much farming on that lower, on those lower lands. Yes.
How do you provide sub-irrigation?
Let me get to a map here and maybe I can explain. Let's see here. I got the best. Sorry if I'm making folks dizzy here, but so this is kind of, so this upper part of the channel, which you can kind of see along here in the aerial photo or along here in the graphic.
Right.
What this channel water control gate does is we close that in the summertime, and that retains water in this upper part of the channel.
Yeah.
And that allows, that kind of keeps the water level up in the adjacent areas so that they don't dry out as easily.
That makes sense.
So
in that picture, there's a whole bunch of little, to me, looked like borrow pits. Did they dig those out to build a dam? Is that what those are?
well, that's another, so this area here, I'm assuming this is what you're talking about, this area
Yep.
here.
Yep.
Yeah. So that area here is actually here a few years ago, it went into NRCS's wetland reserve program.
Oh,
And it's
I see.
a permanent easement. And so what they did is they went in and they called de-leveling at the time. They kind of created these ponds to help, kind of encourage wildlife. So
So you said that the dam was made out of peat?
Yes,
So peat's not, peat's permeable. I mean, the water ought to be running through that.
yeah. It does. I mean, it's not, obviously it still holds water during a flood event because it doesn't go through that fast. But no, it's not the most ideal material for a dam. But the reason that it is because basically all this this is all actually part of the old lake bed.
Yeah,
And so there's 25 feet of peat piled up here, just from, all that organic matter. So you can't really put anything unless you were to drive piles. The only way to really stabilize this would be to to drive piles and get it so that you could support it on a firmer material.
so I take it the bottom of the lake is also peat.
Yeah, it's very, very, yes, a lot of organic material.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why it's so difficult and too costly to try to repair. And that's why it's currently made out of peat and why we currently have the flooding, the problems with it. So when we did get some high water back in 2017, we sandbagged some areas right along here and a couple of spots here and a couple of spots here that to prevent it from totally being breached. Hope that
Mm.
kinda
So
helps.
that upper area, do you have the right to flood that above the control? I
Yeah,
forget-
this area all kind of floods anyway. And you can kind of see here because this aerial photo was probably taken in the spring and you can see how wet this looks.
Mhm.
And I didn't put in the presentation, but even with this dam not there, this whole area floods during high water events, during flooding events.
Yeah, that would seem to be the buffer area that would prevent problems downstream.
Right. And there's no structures or anything in most of this area. Excuse me.
Okay, so the flood control primarily benefits people below the dam.
Well, it also prevents the flooding around the lake, and having that control gate allows control of the lake levels. So it keeps it from getting too high in the winter and too low in the summer. And let me see if that, I think one of the next, sorry if I'm getting everybody dizzy again here. Okay, so this is kind of our goal graph. The orange line is kind of what we aim for. We have a minimum. We drop it down in the winter to make room for runoff in the spring, and slowly bring it up to around Memorial Day. And this is about where this is roughly the top of the outlet gate weir, and
Yeah.
then it drops off during the summer, mostly due to evaporation. And you can kind of see, I just picked this out of a recent presentation we make, and the dots are this year's water surface elevation. And of course, as you guys know, we had a really extreme drought summer. And so we actually closed the gates around the middle of April, and we just never got enough water to fill the lake up. and of course, extreme evaporation during the year. So we're actually, this doesn't show it, but right now the water level, so we would be is right about, we'd be about here on the graph because we're below the winter elevation.
Wow.
But normally, you know, we're below this goal anyway, just because, you know, summers are usually kind of dry, and but we usually do have to open the gates here come September and October to bring it down to the winter elevation. It's probably the first year since the 20 plus years I've been doing this that we've not had to open the gates. So it's pretty extreme year.
So Marianne, I have a couple questions.
You bet.
On this chart, is this also showing there's about a 1 foot to 1.5 foot difference in lake level throughout the year?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. So this is in feet over here. So we're at about 23.9 is our winter goal, and our peak summer goal is 25.6.
Okay. And the reason you-
Just for reference, the flood elevation is 2120. It doesn't give the about 27 on this scale. So if we had a flood event, that's what we're looking at. It's up here.
what lake level is your outflow designed to carry? I mean, what would be the maximum level of the lake? Is that the 27 that you just referred to?
Right, that's the design. The 100-year, what they call 1% chance flood elevation is 2127, and that's basically the system design goal when it was rehabilitated in the early 80s. We just talked about.
Okay. And the reason you lower the lake in the winter, is that to make room for next year's water?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, to allow room for the runoff. So if we kept it up high, then we would increase our chance of flooding at the lake without having that room, because at a certain point you can't open the gates enough to allow all the water out. So that
Okay.
gives us some volume to absorb.
Another example, Brian, is Lake Chelan. They dropped that 13 feet in the winter to make way for the spring runoff.
Right. Same concept. Yeah. Okay. I understand. Thank you.
In that case, though, I think they're doing it primarily for electrical generation. They're trying to make sure they have enough head in the summertime.
Yeah, that's part of the equation.
Okay.
Also keeps the lakefront bone owners happy.
Okay, so I think this is about where we were. Okay, so yeah, maintaining the lake curve, the sub-irrigation along the properties below the lake, and of course trying to minimize the flooding impacts during flooding events. Of course, where all this ends up is the outlet is into the sump or the sink, various names, but we have to maintain that to allow for the infiltration, because if it can't take all the water coming in during a runoff from the lake, then it overflows and floods down into the area to the south. Let me see here if I've got a good, I want to get into, go back to our other map. I should have put one in the, keep you from spinning around here. Yeah, so if it does overflow, if this is where it all ends up, so we have to maintain that infiltration capacity there. There was in 97, even though the sump had been maintained and scraped the year before, it still overflowed. And the duration of the event was so long that the silt started plugging it up, and it overflowed down into right almost to Trent Road, which is the state highway along here, and went through Mobile Home Park, and minimal damage, but it was flowing through there for, I think, for a couple of months.
Why is there no outlet down to the river?
So naturally, this channel didn't exist, and there's a rise. Comes about in here, about where that channel water control gate is. And so it used to, prior to any of this existing, it just basically filled up the basin. And so from what we can tell, it looks like the lake level used to get actually pretty high without this. We did run some models here recently, and we could get you more information if you wanted to, but to see what would, whoops, gosh, I'm sorry, to see what would happen if if we didn't have that option. But so this was just again, to be able to have better control over the lake, and also to be able to farm that. That's when they installed this outlet channel, and we're still quite a ways from the Spokane River at this point, and so it all just infiltrates. If we didn't have the infiltration capability right now, it would kind of back up kind of along this highway and railroad tracks. And there is an underpass here. It might spill out into here a little bit. I didn't put that in there today, but we do have some inundation maps which show that.
It just seems odd that if you're going to build essentially a spillway, that you don't connect it with the river, that they picked this to do it to the sump instead.
Well, we have kind of an unusual thingy here. I don't know if you've heard of the Spokane Valley Aquifer and the Missoula floods, but
I do know the Missoula floods.
Yeah. So basically the Spokane Valley is one big gravel, very permeable gravels, and there's and that's why we have a great aquifer running underneath it. So water infiltrates pretty quickly. In fact, there's very few locations along that valley where you have outlets that directly connect to the river. Most end up infiltrating before they get there. And that would be this case as well. I don't know if that makes sense. So for example, Liberty Lake, which is just on the south side of the valley from Newman, does the same thing. Does the same thing. And most there are a couple of small drainages that actually do connect, but most of them don't. So the water just infiltrates before it can get there.
Okay.
So Marianne, you had mentioned that there was a mobile home park that flooded because the sump was not accepting water as fast as it should. Is that mobile home park in the flood control district?
No, actually. Let's see if I don't have a good map of that, but I could. It is not. So the flood control zone district boundary. Let's see here. Got that map here. You know what? I'm not sure that I did give a good map, but that's a mistake on my part. Yeah, it would probably take me, oh, go ahead, Ron. I'll stop sharing, and Ron says he's got a map that he can share, so. Okay, so here's the map of the district boundaries. The red area is the parcels that actually pay at least one of the assessments. The channel, you can see my pointer kind of follows along down here, and this is where the sink is. We own that property there. When it overflows, it goes down south of the district because the mobile home park, there's some farm fields here, there's an Exxon station, and Trent Road, it's all outside of that district. The area that gets flooded is pretty much all outside of the district.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see here. Oops, let's see. Let's go back to where we were. Okay, so we talked about the sump, the lake level graph. Okay, so on the water quality side, you know, specifically what we have coming up is we received some money a couple of years ago from the state, approximately $400,000 to evaluate and repair and or replace some of the water quality equipment. We completed earlier this year, completed the phase 1 report on our current operations effectiveness. Currently finishing up phase 2 of the design work, hoping for construction installation next year. The current scope, which kind of depends on costs and bids, includes replacing the 30-year-old pump that's in the lake, the obsolete pump, and that, according to the recommendations in the phase 1 of this, would help us improve the oxygen transfer efficiency. Because right now, what they determined is that the system has too much oxygen and for the size of the cone, unless we were to raise the pressure, it's a little complicated, but and we've basically got too much pump capacity and too much oxygen going in there for the size of the cone that we have. And it's really not too feasible to upgrade that system, other than maybe reducing the size of the pump, which needed to be replaced anyway. So it includes that. It also includes replacing one of the 30-year-old air sep units, installing some new alum lines for the alum injection system, included painting the control gates, and purchasing an in-lake water quality sensor. Excuse me. We talked a little bit about this already, but you know, what kind of are some of these ongoing water quality issues? And it's, you know, a combination of things. And it's also the lake bottoms themselves. And part of that is having that oxygen system to be able to minimize the influence of the in-lake sediments and the contribution to the in-lake sediments. So milfoil control, this year we did a 60-acre treatment, mostly this year at the south end of the lake. Kind of alternate hitting some of the heavier infested areas. This year we spent about $20,000, solely funded by the flood district. In past years we were able to get ecology grants, but they've told us that not likely to get those into the future. And then of course, continue operation of the oxygenation and alum systems with some of the new operation recommendations. One of the things that I think the advisory board is looking into, the community is looking into the future is a better oxygenation system too. Had a recommendation for what's called a linear diffuser, and so they may be looking at trying to get funding for that into the future. But for now, we would just be operating the current systems, continue the milfoil control efforts, and continue our water quality monitoring, mainly for the alum injection permit, but also as feedback on the program effectiveness and yeah, documenting the lake water quality. So what does it take to do all that? Budget wise, this year our budget was about $255,000. 48,000 of that was for flood control, 207 of that water quality assessments. You'll know that the this is mainly just for kind of ongoing operational expenses. There is some more money in here because of the capital grant. We'd actually thought we were going to be building it this year. So that's why the total expenditures is showing about 600 and some thousand. But oh, I kind of lopped off the expenses, but this here is our salaries. This is kind of permits and operational costs. And this is electricity and alum costs, maintenance. So that's a big chunk, even minus this $300,000. A big chunk of our costs is just operating the alum injection systems and miscellaneous. So how that kind of splits out, there's 760 parcels. This is for 2021. There were 760 parcels with assessment charges. There's actually a total of 1,760 parcels in the district. The highest charge was about $2,000. The average is about $335. So there's quite a range. This gives you kind of a distribution to, the most are under $100, but there are a few that kind of give you an idea of how that balances out. 2022, we just to maintain these kind of current operations, we are proposing about a 13% assessment increase. Of course, in our budget is included paying for your costs too, which was reimbursed by the county here recently from their general fund budget. And we have next year the capital grant construction of $273,000 to be reimbursed by the state. However, with that, we're still running really pretty low on reserves. Estimate only about 32,000 for flood control, 17,000 for water quality. The advisory board is considering mostly these first 3 items as add-ons, doing some additional water quality sampling, doing a surface alum treatment instead of an injection, and that may be just because of our delays of getting the new lines in. And we're also looking at the option of that maybe the surface treatment is better than the injection system. And then compiling data. So that's still under consideration. It's still draft. The hearing will be held on that next month, but just wanted to give you an idea of what that was kind of looking like that.
Mary Ann,
So,
who makes up this advisory board?
there are, per the RCW, there's 5 actual voting advisory board members, and we have positions for 3 more alternate members just to increase the participation. They are all pretty much right now, I think, well, they're all residents of the district. Most of them are assessment payers and live either seasonally or year round at the lake.
Okay, so these are
and-
residents of the district.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
And you'll be meeting with them here whenever you want to schedule it. You know, you probably be good for you to meet with them and discuss their issues. But yes, they are residents of the district.
Mary Ann, is there somebody that owns the lake, or what's the ownership status of the actual lake?
So let's go ahead and stop. It's actually a state-owned lake. So the state DNR actually owns the lake beds once you get past the private property owners shoreline area. The state owns it.
Okay.
And most of the frontage is private. The exception being the Fish and Wildlife boat launch. Well, and I should say, no, there is a conservation future. So Spokane County Parks has a pretty good sized piece of property up towards the north end of the lake too. That's in conservation futures. Call that parks property.
Okay.
So as I understand it, there's 1,700 parcels and 1,000 of them don't contribute. Does that mean they're all in the zero benefit zone?
Correct. Yep. Yep. That gets back to kind of that map that probably kind of a good one that that Ron shared there. Show that again. That's kind of there we go. Yeah. Yeah. So the ones in red are the ones that are actually classes basically 1 through 4 of either flood control or water quality or both. And the
Why
white,
are those properties included?
because the general guidance, I think, although I'm not sure it's specific in the RCWs, was that for flood control zone districts is that you encompass the entire watershed. And so that's why the boundaries were chosen the way they were, to encompass the watershed.
And that kind of brings me back to my question about the mobile home park. Is if water can infiltrate to that location, isn't it in the watershed?
Yeah, that's a good question, but it doesn't. I don't know that if I can answer. answer
Mary
what their thought process was. Yes.
When you go back to the origination of the district, didn't you say that it didn't drain that far? Before they put in any of the, any of the structures? It was held within the basin.
No, it would have, well, it would have been designed, okay, so during a 100-year event, the system that they were planning or designing at the time how do I say this? So they formed the district in 1968. The sink was there. Whether it overflowed or not, I don't know. Prior to that, the system that NRCS designed and to improve basically the kind of the existing system, although there were pretty significant improvements to it, was designed for the 1% chance or 100-year event. In 97, we obviously exceeded that, although I'm not sure that we exceeded the peak flow, but the duration of the event exceeded that, and it did overflow the sump because it just started to plug up over that long of an event. I'm not sure I'm answering the question right though, Chad.
Okay, you're fine. You answered it for me. I'm not sure about the other guys. I'm not sure they had the answer to the question.
Okay.
So I'm sure there's probably some things I kind of missed in there. If let's see, think of things. We also, I think it'd be helpful. I know you had, at least in our kind of draft plans, to give you guys a tour of everything, but hopefully this at least gives you some background prior to that.
I have another question about water quality, and I just want to make sure I understand it correctly. It seems like water quality is only associated with everything above the flood control gate. There's nothing below the flood control gate with water quality.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Let's move on. The scope of work, the draft, you prepared this, Mary Ann? Well, anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't know. I don't remember how that kind of got back on there, but yeah, if you wanted to talk about, I can bring that timeline up if you wanted to talk about that at all.
Brian, Larry, do you have any questions or problems with the scope draft that was sent to us? Timing?
I don't remember
It's the
seeing
one that
there.
came out originally.
Yeah, you want me to share my screen here? I think we had it at the last. Here, I'll bring it up here. Let's see here, sorry.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, no, I don't have any questions about that.
Nor do I.
It looks reasonable to me.
Yes.
I do have a timing issue. I'm going to be out of office.
Pardon me?
I say I do have a little bit of a time conflict with my schedule. I'm going to be out of office from next Tuesday for a week. I have no idea if that's important or unimportant, but
Well, I'm gonna be gone from October 29th or 28th to November 8th. But I don't see it as a conflict.
mhm. I also got enough review jobs in yesterday to take me through when in fact, I'm gonna be working on some of those while I'm in St. Louis. So I'm all of a sudden tight on time for the next 2 weeks.
Okay, I think we can work around that. I think probably the next thing we want to do is try to schedule a tour of the facilities with whoever from the county.
I think
Yeah,
that's a good idea.
I would love that.
I would think the sooner the better. Although I know we're all busy.
So I'm available anytime after the 14th.
Brian, how does that work for you?
That should work fine. I just have one Friday a month. I have a prior commitment, but
Yeah,
as long as it's not a Friday.
Why don't we try a Monday on the 18th? And that way, if we want, we can travel on the Sunday.
that works.
Yeah, that works.
Can you set that up, Marianne?
Will do.
Just in terms of logistics, I'm wondering, were you guys intending for that to be a public meeting in there? Did you want to combine that? I know Casey may have some ideas about how to visit the site, all of that stuff, while we're still meeting the Open Public Meeting Act stuff.
Yeah, Casey, would it be a public meeting while they're out in the field?
No, the only thing, it would not be a public meeting while they're out in the field. And if they were together, I would just tell them to not discuss any business, not to make any comments on any of the properties, anything like that. It's purely observational only. If you would like me to be there, I would be more than happy to be there. I'm out of town. I'm working, but so I'm planning on being at our next meeting on the 13th, but I am out of town through the 26th. So if you'd like me to attend, it would be after that time.
I don't think that would be necessary for you to be there.
Okay.
Probably if we do that field review on the 18th, I would probably schedule a public meeting the following day. Or
What are you envisioning in a public meeting? Do you mean just for us to meet and talk, or are you thinking we would be meeting with residents?
Marianne and help.
Chad, what were we thinking?
Well, truly, that's up to the board. There was talk about meeting the advisory board. All of that can be done virtually.
Yeah.
Or you could try to, don't know how we would schedule, a meeting with that smaller group. We could probably schedule and still meet our COVID requirements. but it would have to have a virtual element. So it's kind of up to, at the pleasure of the board here. This isn't a lot in my job.
Yeah, it's probably a little easier just to, as far as arranging, to do the virtual meetings, but yeah, whatever.
Kind of whatever fits for you guys. Whatever you think it's the best way to approach it.
So we do the public meeting virtually? Is that what you're saying?
We could do that. The other, just another idea, maybe, Gary, if the three of you wanted to get together in a room, we have some conference rooms that have virtual capability. So we could make it open to the public, but you guys could be in the same room talking to each other. That might be an option that works for you guys too. You can schedule that at the same time.
Yeah, I envision it to be essentially a listening gathering. So yeah, if you do it virtually.
So you're feeling like you're ready for input from the stakeholders, so to speak.
I think so.
Yeah, I am too.
We have some written comments, but probably some that want to voice their positions directly to us.
Also, my understanding is you guys can solicit input during these meetings as well, virtually, and that's not a problem.
Okay. So we're going to try to set up the field review for the 18th.
Yes.
Yes.
And do you guys want that to be kind of a standalone, and we'll worry about the scheduling a public meeting later?
Is scheduling a public meeting got some strings attached to it? Things that have hoops we have to jump through in order to do it?
There's notice requirements. The board does have a scheduled meeting already for the 27th. I don't know of October. I don't know if you guys went out there on the 18th, if that meeting would suffice. And at any of these meetings, you can also elicit public testimony.
So there's no public here today, is there?
Oh, there could be, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, we have 5 people listening in via Zoom and telephone.
Okay. Well, why not schedule a public meeting for the 27th then?
Is that one of the regular scheduled Wednesdays?
It is.
Yeah. So I think we just have to add a public testimony topic on the agenda.
Did you guys want us to reach out specifically to the advisory board? I heard somebody mention that they wanted to hear from them.
That was part of their scope too, generally. Yeah.
We could also, at that same meeting on the 27th, if the board wanted to, we could invite the advisory board to join for our meeting on the 27th. And then that way it would also be compliant with the Open Public Meetings Act.
Sounds like a plan. Let's do it.
All right.
Who's going to be at the field visit? I don't know that we have that set yet. Do we know?
Who do you guys want? Obviously, you'll be there. I'm sure Marianne.
Yeah,
Be a
we'll
great.
have our staff. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so there'll be other people there that
Yeah, I think some of our initial thought, but but we're open to it, is that, we could might end up being, half a day or something like that, 2-3 hours anyway, showing you the facilities and kind of just generally driving around the district. And then after that, either that day or the next day or whatever, if you guys wanted to take more time individually to look at the properties a little closer, whatever, you're welcome to do that too. Or whatever assistance you need, decide you need from us, just let us know.
Okay.
Well, I am particular, I'm feeling like I need to know an awful lot more about the properties that are, that we're making judgments about before we try to make judgments about them. So if there's 700 properties, I wouldn't expect to look at all of them, but I'd sure like to see where the dividing lines are between the different benefit groups.
Yeah, so now that you guys have your laptops, I don't know if you've noticed on there, do you have an option or connect to county maps? Or maybe I could, probably wouldn't need a public meeting for this, but I could, talk to you individually so we can show you how to get to county maps, or I don't know, if you want, I could try to share screen and show you that too. I'm just saying that would give you an opportunity to look at some of these different layers that were on those big paper maps. Look at the benefit areas relative to the specific parcels. And I'm happy to walk you through that a little bit, and just let me know what format works good for that.
Larry, you were talking maybe on the ground, seeing where the dividing lines were, so that you get a feel for it when you're over here. Is that where you were
Yes, yeah. It would seem to me that if we're going to make judgments about where those lines are going to be, we should have some idea of where they are. I don't think it can be done from 30,000 feet.
Is there any general information that we can provide you on the properties, assessment values, anything else that you think you guys would like to see?
Well, one of the things we'd requested was a Excel spreadsheet
Yeah.
showing by our setup,
Yes.
by assessor's parcel number and the owner, what the current percentage assessment is.
Yeah, and I think we have that. I apologize. I can get that sent out to you here shortly.
Okay.
Mary Ann, I'd sure like a little lesson on how to use the laptop and what resources are available to us virtually anyway, just to at least look at it that way as well. So whenever you have time, that would be good.
Okay.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
Me too.
Okay, anything else we need to cover? Any miscellaneous topics? I think we've covered items for the next meeting. 27th, what we're going to do there. And at this point, I don't think there's any individual tasks to be assigned.
So our next meeting is on the 15th.
18th. Oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry.
14th,
Just
13th.
the 13th.
13th, there it is. Yeah. Lucky number.
Oh, wrong month.
Yeah, yeah, you're right, Larry. 13th would be 2 weeks.
Okay, can you guys hang on? I want to go ask my wife if I'll be back by then.
You can also zoom in from wherever it is you are. I'll be out of the state when I'm zooming in on the 13th, so
Take your laptop with you.
I am.
Oh, talking to, well, Larry's not there now.
Oh,
You were scheduling a meeting on the 18th, which is the next Monday. Isn't that that when you were coming over here? Not a meeting. That's right. That's
not a meeting. Mm-hmm.
But it might be just a thought. You may want to have the meeting the Wednesday after.
Yeah.
Or
That's
or
what
even a
I'm
week after
thinking.
that.
The meeting on the 20th rather than the 13th.
I was not planning on working that week. I won't be here. So, I'm going to be golfing. So,
Can't you zoom in from the golf course, Casey?
not this one.
I don't know if we had anything really pressing to have a meeting on the 13th.
Yeah, we get back on the 13th
Okay.
Okay.
into SeaTac. And
You guys want to skip that one and go with the next regularly scheduled one?
Maybe that
You
would
know,
be.
why don't we do that scheduled for the 27th?
Casey, do we need to, is there a notice that we need to do to cancel that one?
Pardon me?
However you cancel, like if the commissioners were to cancel a BOCC meeting, it would be the same thing. I think you just put out a notice.
Yeah.
The meeting's been canceled.
Just post
Mr.
on the
Valencia.
website.
Post it on the website. Yeah.
Do we need a motion to cancel the meeting, or we can
You could just say any other thoughts. You could do by motion, or you could say
Well, the
Is
chair,
there-
the chair can cancel a meeting.
the chair can also cancel a meeting. Yes. So the chair can just say, well, if you guys collectively right now would like to strike the next meeting, you can have a motion right now and say, I move to cancel the next meeting and meet on the 27th. That would be acceptable.
I move to cancel the next meeting on the 13th and have the 27th be the next meeting for us.
I second it.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
It's done.
Perfect.
Make sure the notice gets out.
And there won't be a public meeting on the 18th or 19th, correct?
No, but we are going to schedule that field visit for the 18th.
Perfect. But that's not a public meeting.
No.
Mary Ann, you'll coordinate that with these guys?
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah. We'll do that, and we'll set up a time individually too. We can screen share and walk through some of the computer laptop stuff, resources that you want.
It sounds good.
And then on the 27th, that's when you'll take public testimony.
Yes.
And we'll send out a notice to or an invitation to the advisory board.
Do you want
Correct.
to discuss how you want to structure that public testimony, time limits, anything like that? Or are you apt to just listen and for however long it takes?
I think we should limit it to not more than 5 minutes.
And that's just something you could say at the start of the meeting. Or we could also put that out in our notice.
I think put it in the notice.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. Any other thing we need to cover?
I did have one kind of miscellaneous item. Do you, to what extent do you want to share the public comments? Do you want to just hold on to them for now, or do you want us to post them on the website? And then I guess the question, if you do want to post them, is to what extent is it all that information public, Casey?
It's all public.
It's all public. Anything that's submitted via the website, it's all public information. And so, you know, if they wanted to post it to the website, that could be helpful.
I don't think so. I think
Okay.
you post it on the public website, it's going to limit some people's participation.
Okay.
I think
Sounds good.
do it just like we did with the ones we got yesterday.
Okay.
Okay, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
So be it. Have a good day, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.